Hi, everybody. This is Mr. Cannon back again with your next senior project screencast. This time we're talking about the presentation. We're going to go at a pretty quick pace, so buckle up. Here we go. So what is the presentation? This is, while it doesn't necessarily have to be the very last thing that you do, it is the culmination of senior project where you present what you've done, your entire project, your A-OK, your outside expert, the stuff you learned, all of that to your friends, your family, classmates, and to the whole school. What does that mean? Well, while I said before, it's not the actual last thing that you're going to have to do, it's probably one of the most important. In fact, it's so important that students kind of falsely believe that passing your presentation means you've passed senior project. And while that's not true, if you time everything correctly, then your senior project presentation should be the last big thing that you gotta make sure that you get done. And so once that's over, you can sort of release all that anxiety and feel pretty good about yourself going into graduation and summer. The list of requirements for the presentation are pretty extensive, and I'm not going to talk about all of them, but there's a few that I really do want to talk about. The first one is the length of speaking, 17 to 20 minutes, which means you have to present for a minimum of 17, but you can't go over 20. And while that may seem like it's difficult to do, and it is, a 3-minute window of time is actually a pretty long bit of time. It's fairly manageable. But if you haven't practiced and you don't know what it feels like to present for that long, you might be in trouble, which is why we require a practice presentation, which you'll learn about a little bit later on in this screencast. Now, just because the presentation itself must be 17 to 20 minutes doesn't mean you actually have to be speaking, actively speaking that whole time. Let's say you did something that involves a video, or you found a video that really relates to your project that you want to share. That can also be used. It just can't be longer than 5 minutes. And so for that reason, you have to really talk for at least 12 minutes. And the rubric is very clear on this. So if you have any questions, consult the rubric on that. There's a few other things in here that are really important that you want to make sure that you don't forget to do. One big one that comes up a lot is this last one, thoroughly explaining your A-OK. What did you do? That's an important piece to this. Further requirements, and again, there's a lot going on here. This one here at the top is a little bit bigger and beefier than it's been in years past. We want you to reflect on your entire senior project journey and really talk about what your experience was. And one of the reasons we're asking you to do this in your presentation is because we're not asking you to show Q4 A-OK progress. We really want to see that as a sort of culminating reflection during the presentation, and that's a new thing on the rubric. There's another aspect to the presentation as well, where you need to upload your presentation. If it's a Google slideshow or a Prezi, you can embed it right there on your A-OK progress page. And believe it or not, on the practice presentation rubric, there's a spot for this. So that's where that officially gets graded, and we'll talk about that in a second. One other aspect of a presentation that's important is the takeaway piece, the TAP. So what is that? Well, it's some object. It's something that students who go to your presentation can take with them when they leave to remember it by. Sometimes the projects lend themselves to really great takeaway pieces, and sometimes you have to think really hard about what a good takeaway piece would be. But it should enhance and support the presentation, and that's its function. In terms of requirements, you should bring at least 25 of them. Don't worry if you expect hundreds of people to be at your presentation that you won't have enough. It's fine. Something the audience can take with them, relevant, meaningful, and connect. And if it's something that's going to be just thrown away, maybe think of something better. One of the important things to the takeaway piece, because it does seem a little bit like an afterthought, is we do give a senior project award for that on senior night. So if you have a clever takeaway piece, you could win an award for that. In terms of the presentation itself, a lot of times students don't really know what format it should be in. So we've given you guys sort of a template or a format go-to here. So basically, if you follow this format, you'll ensure that everything that needs to be in there is in there. So in the beginning, right, talk about who you are, how you got involved in the senior project, why you picked it, explain your EQ and sub-EQs, and tell the audience what they should see. In the middle, you really you include what you did, right? You'll talk about the research that you did, your OE, your AOK, how your AOK relates to your EQ and sub-EQs. And then in closing, we want to make sure that you revisit your EQs and make sure that you answer them, because that's actually a piece of the rubric. Explain the rest of the stuff. Don't forget to include a works cited page and a thank you page. And you will have to answer audience questions. That's part of it as well. I can't emphasize enough how important it is for you to consult the presentation rubric as you do this. Seriously, everything you need is in there. Don't say that your presentation is ready until you've checked everything off of that rubric, okay? All right, in terms of practice, it really does help. We don't ask you to do a practice presentation just because we want you to have to do one more thing. Especially with the timing, it really does help. So, about that, you have to do it. It is a quarter 4 assignment, and it does have a rubric. So it is something that is graded. It's not based on quality per se. It's based on doing it and including those things. Now, some students are like, well, what if I don't give a practice presentation? Then what? Well, aside from making sure, aside from failing the quarter for not doing that, ultimately, the purpose of the practice presentation is to make sure your official presentation is a good one. And giving that practice presentation gives you an opportunity to get feedback from other people, because sometimes we don't see what's good or bad with our presentation, and that's a really important thing. All right, if you still have questions, you can ask your senior project mentor, you can go to the study hall room, you can come talk to me, Mr. Cannon, signing off on the presentation screencast.